Hey guys, this is Roxum087. Sorry for not making too many videos for the past while. It's because honestly life has been real busy and I just don't have much time nowadays. And I'm also sometimes working in China, so on some days I'm not even in Hong Kong. But I still try to game every weekend, hence the gameplay videos. But yeah, so this video is a Q&A video that I don't follow up very often. It's a series that I pretty much don't do much on my channel, but I'll try to do these Q&A videos every Wednesday from now on, since I have a decent amount of questions coming through now, so I can actually do a Q&A. Keep in mind these Q&A videos is just a random dude on the internet attempting to answer questions, so don't take it too seriously. So first question, which is a very, very tough question. The very first question that I got, which is something I'm pretty sure all of you guys will appreciate, is what is the IPSC mod, and why don't I cover it on my YouTube channel, and how come the information about it is not very clear. So, the IPSC mod is actually quite complicated. It's actually, well, not really. So the IPSC mod. So the real reason is because on my channel, wait, let me rephrase that. How do I answer this? So the real reason why I don't cover it is because there are many different versions of the IPSC mod. There are many different versions. And the airsoft community is not very good at understanding the basic concept of how a gas blowback works. That's the reason why when you look online at discussions, if you try to research it yourself, the IPSC mod, you will find that the information out there is not very clear and very confusing. And ultimately, they don't have anything conclusive to say what the IPSC mod actually does, is it necessary, and how do you do it. So, this is the simplest explanation I can give you guys. No matter which version of the IPSC mod you believe in or use, the common goal of the IPSC mod is that A, it makes the cocking of the hammer feel smoother, and it makes the slide or bolt return faster. Notice my choice of words. Feel smoother and make the slide or bolt return faster. Notice my choice of words. So, I will explain how this is done. So on a Glock, or on most gas blowback pistols, let me move some of this stuff out of the way. It's the FNS 9mm. Very excited. So on a Glock, or with most gas blowback pistols, you will notice that the hammer has the potential to pass the locking point. The locking point is when the hammer locks in with the sear. You just heard that click. That clicking sound is the locking point. And the reason why most hammers pass the locking point is because for reliability reasons, to account for manufacturing errors, also called tolerance, and also to account for any wear and tear on the pistol that could negatively affect the ability of the gun to cock the hammer reliably. That's the reason why the hammer generally passes the locking point for almost all pistols in existence. Almost all. Like a High Kappa 1911, SIG 226, Glock, MMP, FN57, a lot of pistols do it. So, since this is a channel about Glocks, I'm going to explain what this does. So on a Glock, they do this by modifying this bump right over here. You see that little bump right there? The IPSC mod involves modifying this bump on the blowback housing unit. Now, when you look at this in reality, when it comes to cocking the hammer, you have to understand that when it comes to using this to cock the hammer, you don't actually have to pass the locking point by too much. It's because if you pass the locking point by too much, you will be fighting the extra hammer spring tension inside here, which is completely unnecessary. So what the IPSC mod does is that it makes the cocking of the hammer feel smoother by not pushing the hammer too far past its cocking point, or the locking point. And it does this by modifying the slope, or this bump on the blowback housing unit, to prevent the BBU from pushing the hammer too far past the locking point. If you file too little, you won't gain the effect. If you file too much, your gun will go full auto and it may not be able to cock the hammer reliably anymore. Because if you foul too much, your hammer cannot pass the locking point, and then your hammer will just drop back and your gun will go full auto. That's the reason why doing the IPSC mod feels a little bit difficult, is because it's mostly by experience. When I do the IPSC mod by hand, I eyeball my fitment. The same way how AEG techs, sometimes they look at the sector gear and the spur gear to see what the gap distance is between them, to judge how many shims you should shim the sector gear above the spur gear based on how you shim the spur gear. Because normally when you shim gears, you either start with the spur gear, sometimes people like to start with the bevel gear, whichever way you like to start, depending on what your preference is. Ultimately, when you shim the sector gear to the spur gear, there's a certain distance that you have to shim it in. And how do you adjust that distance? I can't tell you. Nobody on the internet can tell you. The reason why is because it is done by experience. And that right there is the reason why doing the IPSC mod is difficult to teach, and frankly, it can't really be taught all that much. I can only tell you how to do it, and then you have to experience it yourself. That's why doing it is difficult. Now, I just covered one part of the IPSC mod. One part of the IPSC mod is cocking the hammer feels smoother. I just told you how to do that. So, the next part is, how does it make the slide returning feel smoother? Well, the slide returning smoother is basically how this bump, how it approaches the rotor. So basically, as your slide returns back into battery, it will hit the rotor, right? That's basically the rotor issue. Now, the reason why this blowback housing unit has a slope on this area over here, this slope is so that it can gain leverage over the circular rotor to push it down. It pushes it down so that the slide can return back into battery. That's the reason why there's a slope there. You can imagine for yourself why a harder hammer spring can make this worse. It's because when you have a harder hammer spring, it makes it more difficult for the blowback housing unit to push the hammer down. That's the reason why the rotor issue exists. That's the reason why the Glocks snag onto the rotor sometimes, resulting in a decreased cycling speed, and sometimes it can even get stuck on the rotor if you're using a very hard hammer spring. A very good example of that is the Guns Modify 150% hammer spring. If you still have that hammer spring, it will definitely make your Glock jam up or go really slow. It's because as the blowback housing unit approaches it, it just completely, messes it up. That's the reason why that happens. Now, so how does the IPSC mod fix this? So, like I said, the IPSC mod involves fouling this area on the bump. You can foul it more to make the slope go over it easier. Or, you can modify the slope position, meaning you can adjust the angle of the slope or where the slope starts to change the way the slope engages with the rotor. That's how you do it. Now, people normally use a mill or I use a rotary tool. A rotary tool is also called a Dremel. Dremel is a company. That's technically not the tool's name. The rotary tool is the proper name for that tool. I'm not going to talk about the way to do it, actually. It's because it's honestly, you first have to have the tools to do it, and you have to grasp this concept in order to even do it in the first place. So, there are some people who think that you shouldn't touch this at all. And there's some people who like to do it the way I like to do it, which is change the slope of the bump. Like how a high kappa or how a 1911 engages with the hammer. You notice how the bump on the blowback housing unit, it also gets caught in the hammer, but it can still go over it, despite the weak hammer spring. This is an Angry Gun 1911. Actually looks very pretty. That's the reason why a high kappa and 1911 tends to feel a little bit smoother, is because they have enough leverage to go over the hammer. So some people think that for Glocks, you should try to do the same. So that's what the IPSC mod is, in the shortest explanation I can give you. If you guys have purchased my RTS 7075 T6 aluminum blowback housing unit for Glocks, you guys can clearly tell that I favor one particular method of doing the IPSC mod. You can try copying the specs of this if you want, but it's hard to replicate it. It's because the numbers go down to 0.0 something mm, so it's not exactly something that you can easily copy, although with the technology getting better, you can probably try scanning it and try your luck. So, the drawback to this mod is that if you do too much, you screw up your gun. It will not work on loose slides like Nova slides. It's because right off the bat, Nova slides are incredibly loose. You can't do the IPSC mod, because the IPSC mod relies on a certain, requires you to file this to a certain level. So right off the bat, the Nova slides, you cannot apply the IPSC mod to a Nova slide. It's just way too loose, way too unpredictable. That's the reason why you cannot do it. In fact, I clearly specify that you should not use my blowback housing unit with Nova slides. It was never meant to. They were never meant to be used to game anyways, because they're so loose. The way that my workshop normally fixes that is that I custom machine lower chassis for Nova slides to tighten them up. But at the same time, I honestly don't like doing that. It's because the quality of the slides that Nova makes is honestly not very good. I find it hard to imagine that it's CNC. Maybe it is CNC, but then it's not done very well. I think they use a very, very ghetto T-shaped tool to cut the inner area for the Glock slide. That's the reason why it's not very good, and why it's always very loose. That's my suspicion, but I'm not Nova, so I wouldn't know that. It's just a guess, because I manufacture my own stuff too, right? So I have to figure this out myself. So that's the first question. Sorry. So the next question is just more of a personal question towards my channel, which is why don't I make more video reviews, despite all the stuff I have? So the answer is actually very, very simple. I just don't have much time to make video reviews. Be quite honest with you, I have a job, and also I'm actually still going through school. I'm in my last year for university, but I split it part-time, so I can work and pay my way through school, and also through this crap, because I'm also doing all this airsoft stuff in my own spare time. So I just don't have much time nowadays. I want to do more reviews, to be quite honest with you, is because I like practicing. Oh, by the way, how my Rogue System 087 channel started in the first place, how it started was that I was actually practicing my presentation skills for a job that I was doing. That's how my channel started. It's because I just wanted to practice my English speaking skills, because I was doing presentations, like 2 or 3 presentations every week. So I needed to get good fast. That's the reason why I started the channel, is to practice. It was very good practice. It helped a lot. I'm still not very good at presentations, but it helps me bullshit a little if I happen to forget about something. And for this last part is just a quick question about externals about my Tokyo Marui M4. So this is the M4 that I've been using in many of my outdoor games for the past while. This M4 is actually mostly stock. And the reason why is because I actually wanted to make this M4 a little bit lower power for Hong Kong reasons, because I have to keep the power a little bit low, but it's still shooting really hot. It still shoots like 1.5, 1.6 joules. So, but anyways, let me talk about the externals first, because some people are curious as to what this is. So this rail is a very, very old style rail. Nobody uses this anymore. This is called a Voltor Cas V rail. It is a very old style rail that nobody uses, is because it's super fat. Look at how big the handguard is, relative to my hand. It is really, really big. You can't even wrap your hand around it. The reason why I like this rail is because this is one of the old school rails that I really liked when I was a kid. So I really wanted this for my M4. Notice that it has a PRI gas block, and also it extends up to the upper receiver. Can you see this part up here? It actually makes my scope sit a little bit higher because of this rail. This rail system bolts onto the upper receiver, so it's really, really sturdy. That's the reason why I like this rail so much. I actually really want to get a, I want to build a Mark 12, that uses a PRI handguard, but that's very difficult to get. I'm in Hong Kong, so it's very hard for me to buy the real steel version of that. This is not a real steel version. This is made by King Arms. King Arms makes it in OD, tan, and black. I opted for the OD because I like the OD one better. This is also a steel flash hider from the Knight's Ornament Suppressor, just a regular short stubby grip, a Magpul SL stock, and a Magpul grip, MOE grip, so nothing special. Internally, I changed out the buffer for an Angry Gun buffer. You can tell just by looking at it, it's the Angry Gun buffer. I have a PTS Raptor charging handle, and my custom bolt. This bolt is called the RTS 7075 aluminum bolt. It works perfectly fine. It works actually very well. It will kick up your FPS by a little bit, actually, just by using it. I'm using the stock inner barrel with the UAC hop-up rubber and my custom hop-up chamber, which I have not released yet. The reason why is because I think I found a way to improve the hop-up arm tension, because the original one is die-casted, right? So I CNC'd one to make the hop-up arm move a bit smoother and to not have it lopside, because the stock hop-up arm does that a little bit. You can actually move your hop-up arm when you have it on your inner barrel. You can actually move it with your fingers. So that's something that I'm working on. I haven't tuned it yet because I'm still working on the tolerance, is because I have to make sure the hop-up chamber is really, really tight to make sure the air seal's perfect and all. I haven't figured that all out yet. It's because the numbers are quite tight. As far as I can tell with the Tokyo Marui M4, everything that you make for it has to be very precise. Which reminds me, this brings me to the last question about the Tokyo Marui M4, which is about the receiver. There are more companies making the receivers for the Marui M4s now. I'm going to warn you, avoid RA Tech. RA Tech is... They never ever look up for their tolerance, and they do not test the stuff that they make. They never test it. There's sometimes you can buy things from them, and it's not even finished machined yet. Do not buy it. Unless you see someone who actually uses it and claims that it's a drop-in, then go for it. But otherwise, if I were you, hold back a bit, is because honestly speaking, like, there's many things from RA Tech that are just not very good, to be quite honest with you. They leave me a little bit more disappointed than anything else. And frankly, it has nothing to do with me hating on them. It's just, check your own product after you make it. You know what I mean? How much time would it take you to assemble one just to know if you made your product right? Anyways, enough of me. Z parts. Z parts, apparently, they're going to make a receiver. Now that I'm a little bit more interested in. Z parts, I'm not entirely sure where they're based off. But I'm very well aware they make a Mod 12 kit, and also I know they make steel and aluminum barrels. I hope their stuff is properly spec'd, I hope. As of right now, I'm not aware of any other company making the receiver. Other than the RWA released their Battle Arms Development 556 body, which not many people have, because there's very few made. Very, very expensive. You might see a review of this on this channel, is because I have a few customers who bought it. I might get a chance to build it. Maybe. We'll see. I highly doubt it. There's like 80 or 90 of them floating around. Maybe less. I can't remember what the exact number is. Anyways, that's it for the end of the video. Peace, guys. Happy shooting. And thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.